What's up, guys? McJibbin Reacts. My name is Connor. Let's get right into. Thanks again, CJ, for recommending these videos again. I feel like I've been learning a lot about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War in general lately through these videos and through a few History Matters videos I've done about the Cold War, like Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba, stuff like that. But yes, I did graduate from college with a BA in history, but it was really, I was transferring over to a different college, and the credits that I had fulfilled did match up nicely with a history degree, and I didn't mind history. I rushed into college too fast without really thinking about what I wanted to do. That was a result, so I don't consider myself a historian by any sense of the word, though I do love history, and I did, of course, learn a lot while getting that degree and just in the off time. So this is technically day 00, but this is the third part because we have done Prelude 1 and 2. Go check out those videos already. Go check out those two videos first if you haven't seen those. So this is the third part, but it is also day 00. If Paris was nuked. Whoa. So yeah, please hit that bell icon, subscribe, everything. I'll leave the original link to this video on this channel down in the description at the top below. Very easy for me to react. You know, the tough work is done by the people who create the videos. Always put stuff down in the comments. You know, dislike it, like it, whatever. Let's go.
Years. In the summer of 1962, a war of words between the United States and the Soviet Union and a number of nuclear tests on both sides increases tensions that have been mounting for years. Both sides are under growing
Just so you know, I have a video screen here and here, so if you see me switching, I can see it on both spots, you know.
Panic that the other will push the button and launch a preemptive nuclear strike, possibly destroying the world in the process. I'm Indy Nidell, and this is TimeGhost with the Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1958, the Soviets, led by Nikita Khrushchev, demand a stop to nuclear testing to cool down the arms race. The U.S. says no, but the Soviets stopped testing on their own. So under mounting international pressure, the U.S. government and its allies agree to stop tests, and a de facto moratorium goes into effect. In an attempt to make the test ban permanent, negotiations between the U.S., Great Britain, and the Soviet Union begin in Geneva. But here's the thing. As we saw in the preludes, the Soviets are seriously inferior to the Americans in terms of nuclear strength. Although both governments know this, the public on both sides is largely unaware. And the public perception is a missile gap.
I don't want to pause too much, but, you know, a few important thoughts I want to give them. Sometimes I think about why didn't, I'm not saying you had to nuke, you know, there's still debate whether or not nuking Japan was necessary. Those are interesting videos, seeing different people's perspective on that. I think everyone is under agreement that the war would have won regardless, but it's a matter of how many people would have had to die to invade the islands and whatnot. And my point is, in those interim years between when did the Soviets get their first bomb? Did they already say it? Or, it was like 47, 48, 49. Pretty sure it was before 1950. And so I'm not saying, you know, you nuke Moscow, but why not kind of, the fact that they switched from Germany and Japan to the Cold War, by they I mean the U.S., to seeing the USSR as the enemy during the Cold War so fast, it means that they clearly knew that that Stalin and Soviet Russia was the big threat. Now that Japan and Germany and Italy, nobody really thinks about Italy, I guess, sorry Italy, we're done with that. Why wasn't the U.S. kind of more like, hey, look at what we have, you don't have this, it'll be years before? They even got it way earlier than they thought, I think. The Soviets got a bomb way earlier than the Americans thought they would. I'm rambling, but why wouldn't they be a little more forceful after, right after the war, to the Soviets and saying, hey, you don't have this huge weapon, we do? I'm talking too much, sorry. Let's get into it.
in the Soviet Union's favor. In reality, with mid-range missiles in Italy and Turkey, the U.S. is not only the stronger, but also the only side that can effectively carry out an initial strike without ensuring complete self-destruction from the retaliation. In the Soviet Union, political and military pressure increases on Khrushchev to do something, anything, to at least keep up the semblance of a balance of nuclear power. But Khrushchev holds fast to the test ban. By early 1960, the Cold War belligerents reach a tentative agreement in the ongoing Geneva talks. But the situation changes when an American U-2 spy plane is shot down over the Soviet Union on May the 1st. A solution as to how to effectively enforce a ban seems further and further away as the already fragile mutual trust is now severely damaged. By the end of the year, war hawks on both sides call increasingly for resumed nuclear testing. When the crisis over West Berlin breaks out in June 1961, the Soviets end the moratorium and will resume testing beginning September 1st. The U.S. follows suit. On October 30th, 1961, the Soviet Union shocks the entire world when they set off a staged thermonuclear bomb called RDS-220 over the Novaya Zemlya island in the Russian Arctic Sea. The bomb is nicknamed Tsar Bomba in the West. In the USSR, it's referred...
He's going to say it. This is the biggest bomb I believe ever to have exploded. I believe both sides have bigger bombs now. It's just one hasn't exploded.
Referred to as Kushkina Mat, Kuzma's mother, which is also an idiom meaning roughly, "we'll show you," that had been said as a threat to the West by Khrushchev at the United Nations the year before. Now, Tsar Bomba is a truly terrifying device. In a staged thermonuclear device, several separate cores boost the nuclear reaction, right? Theoretically, you can have as many layers as you have nuclear material, making it possible to construct a bomb that blows up the whole planet. Anything more than 2 stages is considered excessive even by nuclear bomb proponents. Tsar Bomba has 3. The cores
using the term excessive when talking about nuclear bombs is
sequentially on each other, compressing the nuclear material and setting off an outward chain reaction, the actual explosive power. The immediate explosion expands into a huge fireball before reaching 100 million degrees Celsius, the same temperature as the interior of the sun. The initial explosion also emits thermal radiation traveling at the speed of light, instantly igniting anything within its radius. The heat created inside the fireball causes a thin shield of air to expand violently within fractions of a second of detonation. This hydrodynamic front acts like a piston on the surrounding medium and sets off a massive shock wave that accelerates outward at more than 1,000 kilometers per hour.
That's a cool way to think about it.
In Tsar Bomba, the combined force of thermonuclear blast and shockwave make for an explosion 50 million times stronger than a metric ton of TNT.
Oh, I thought it was going to say then
it remains the largest man-made explosion ever set off, 3,800 times stronger than the Hiroshima bomb.
Okay, that's still huge.
The detonation is at 4 kilometers or 13,000 feet above ground, and it still triggers an earthquake of 5.0 on the Richter scale. The mushroom cloud is close to 60 kilometers high. That is 7 times as high as Mount Everest. Objects in a radius of 35 kilometers are completely destroyed, and the heat from the bomb can be felt hundreds of kilometers away. It actually defies human imagination.
What's 35 miles away? So 35 miles was, it's like, oh, wow, 35 miles. I guess that's, I'm assuming from what he said, the zone where it's just, boom, you're dead. Like, boom, not just boom, you're dead, boom, you're gone. Disintegrated. And that's not quite here to Boston. Ooh.
In many ways. So let me try to put this in some perspective. Let's say that this bomb is set off over the Eiffel Tower in Paris in our time in clear weather. The light flash as it goes off can be seen from over 1,000 kilometers away. So in Berlin, Dublin, Barcelona, the fireball engulfs and instantly incinerates more or less all of the western half of the inner city. About 2 million people just evaporate. The thermal flash is hot enough to instantly ignite wood in the rest of the inner city and the better part of the Parisian suburbs, so millions more die in the flames. Thermal radiation strong enough to create third-degree burns extends to 60 kilometers. Thermal radiation from the bomb only becomes harmless at a distance of 129 kilometers. That's 80 miles. That's roughly the distance to the next big French cities. Rouen.
Wait, so was I wrong? Do I have to retract my statement where something in 36-mile radius is instantly obliterated? Because right there it just said third-degree burn. So I wonder if my hearing is off. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but...
Close to the Normandy coast, Amiens in the north, Rheims in the east, and Orléans in the south. At ground zero, it blasts a crater around 1.5 kilometers wide and 335 meters deep. That is deeper than the Eiffel...
What is that in miles? 1.5 kilometers? A little more than half mile?
Tower was high. The shockwave travels outward at hundreds of meters per second, wiping away pretty much any man-made construction still standing. The whole inner city of Paris is flattened. The shockwave continues to wreak havoc on the suburbs, destroying most houses in a 21-kilometer radius, which includes the Palace at Versailles, the Louvre, and of course killing yet more people. Houses are damaged and all windows blown out for another 25 to 45 kilometers from ground zero. Now that's about a third of the distance to the English Channel. Yet more people are killed and injured. The blast has now destroyed millions of homes and workplaces, 130 hospitals, 88 fire stations, 155 schools, and over 1,000 places of...
I'm not putting down these numbers or anything, but this is, and I'm not saying this isn't practical or probable in the time that Paris could be directly hit, but these are the figures for if you hit. Paris is an extremely dense city, I know that, and so these are like the max numbers, but obviously it's still insane.
Of worship. Millions are already dead and injured, and any survivors have no immediate humanitarian and medical aid at their disposal. Within the coming months, countless more will die from radiation sickness and their wounds. Over Paris, the bomb kills close to 7 million people and injures another 2.5 million. In an instant, one single bomb has created a human tragedy nearly on the scale of a world war.
That is so crazy. That is insane. How for I'm not going to apologize about pausing at this one because this is so, like, to go from a lot of people, the reason I find World War I really interesting, there were a few big wars, prior, but between World War I and like the 7 Years' War, am I right? The 7 Years' War, around the very early 1900s, it seems like after the Industrial Revolution and all this new means of energy to create these new weapons of war, and you can just imagine the militaries in all these different countries, in mainly Europe, very developed countries at the time, just building the most unimaginable weapons of destruction compared to any other wars in history where you had, battles with cavalry and, soldiers clashed in fields. And then you have a weapon, then you have the World Wars, which scales it up immensely. And then you have now a weapon that can, all of that military strategy and really bad people. And I'm not saying everyone in a war is bad. I'm just saying, like, a lot of atrocities happen in wars. All that stuff that end up in millions of people dying and countries being destroyed can now happen like that, just dropping a bomb. And I think that cannot be overstated, what he just said. That, you can inflict a war, a casualties and destruction on a warlike scale, with just one bomb is insane.
So the Soviets might have been behind in the number of warheads and deployment devices, but they now have the strongest.
I'm just gonna play that again.
A human tragedy. One single bomb has created a human tragedy nearly on the scale of a world war.
That's so crazy.
So the Soviets might have been behind in the number of warheads and deployment devices, but they now have the strongest bomb. The Cold War is heating up fast, and the US soon resumes atmospheric tests of its own. But it's not only tests that fan the flames. The rhetoric is also sharpening. On October 21st, a few days before Tsar Bomba, Kennedy lets Khrushchev know that the US knows full well that the missile gap is a myth. For a speech in Hot Springs, Virginia, Kennedy tells his Deputy Secretary of Defense, Roswell Kilpatrick, to let everyone know for the first time and let Khrushchev know that the US knows that there is no missile gap. He reveals the actual number of US missiles and emphasizes that even after a Soviet strike, this arsenal will be enough to destroy the Soviets. Up until this day, the Soviet Union may really have believed that the US actually believed in the missile gap. Well, Khrushchev knows without a doubt that this jig is up. Yet he continues the rhetoric. His standard response to questions on the missile gap is, yes, I know what Kennedy claims, and he's quite right, but I'm not complaining. We're satisfied to be able to finish off the United States first time around. Once is quite enough. What good does it do to annihilate a country twice? We are not a bloodthirsty people. Although this might sound polite by today's standards, it has effects. Both Khrushchev and Kennedy come under pressure to act on the threats.
I don't think that's polite by today's standards. Maybe the rhetoric, the grammar itself is more polite, but the meaning is right there. You don't got to dig deep into the rhetoric, and that is crazy. Imagine the U.S. and China saying right away, like, actually, I guess we did do that with North Korea. Like, I got a bigger button. Jeez. Oh, God. All right.
Khrushchev makes the first move in May 1962 when he convinces Fidel Castro to let him place nuclear missiles on Cuban soil. By June, the work has begun, and soon, a trickle of reports on mysterious Soviet shipments to Cuba, blank cargo statements, tarpaulin-covered machinery, nighttime unloading of equipment under heavy guard, an increasing Soviet presence on the island reach U.S. officials. Meanwhile, the nuclear tests on both sides proceed. Between 1961 and 1963, the Soviets and the United States carry out more than 200 nuclear tests. Here in the summer of 1962, they turned their attention to high-altitude tests, partly to see if nuclear weapons induce electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, thought to be an effective way to knock out electronics and infrastructure. Well, as it turns out, they are right. On July 9th, 1962, the United States carries out the Starfish Prime test 400 kilometers above the Pacific Ocean. The 1.4 megaton bomb creates a spectacular light show in the sky, but also knocks out a number of satellites, causes power and telephone line outages in Hawaii, and even makes Hawaiian streetlights explode. The nuclear radiation band that it spreads across the top of the stratosphere severely damages the world's first TV and telephone satellite, Telstar 1, which is launched a few days after the detonation. Although it is made functional and makes the first ever satellite relayed telephone calls and TV broadcasts, it does sustain serious radiation damage. In November 1963, shortly after Kennedy's assassination, it fails terminally. Tests in the Soviet Union have similar effects. Kennedy is still under attack at home, though, for being soft on communism. So more tests, more rhetoric, and more mysterious shipments to Cuba put the nuclear arm race at the top of the political debate in the United States. On August 31st, 1962, Senator Kenneth Keating brings the reports of possible missiles on Cuba to the attention of the Senate and urges Kennedy to take action.
WMDs.
Instead of increasing intelligence gathering, though, the White House chooses to restrict aerial reconnaissance by U-2 spy planes over Cuba for diplomatic reasons. So on September 15th, the first actual Soviet missiles arrive on Cuba, and the U.S. does not notice. Nevertheless, the reports on suspicious Soviet activity in western Cuba keep coming in. In early October, the National Security Council relaxes those restrictions on the U-2 flights, but bad weather and red tape delay them until October 14th. On that day, the first flight crosses the island of Cuba and brings back photographs of what analysts at the National Photographic Interpretation Center determine are 3 MRBM launch sites near San Cristobal. The CIA informs the president's national security advisor, McGeorge Bundy, on the evening of October 15th, and Bundy tells President Kennedy the following morning. The hard words, the threats, the blustering, the missiles in Turkey and Italy, the increased nuclear tests, and the overwhelming might of the U.S. nuclear arsenal have not deterred the Soviets. Instead, it has forced them into a corner and made them more dangerous than ever. Kennedy now faces the most dangerous crisis in the history of humanity. In the next 13 days, we'll see the world not only come close to a new world war, but almost step over the precipice into total nuclear holocaust. I will see you tomorrow on...
Great channel. Love continuing to learn about the Cold War. Another thing I find so interesting about this kind of warfare is never has there been a time where two major powers, like major global powers or even regional powers, had a for sure certain way of mutual understanding that if we use this our greatest weapon, they have the same weapon that will be used against us. And even if you can intercept some and stop them, some are going to get through. And in the end, you're going to lose so many people that you're going to end up having, it's not worth it. I think it's a Pyrrhic victory, something like that, where you won the battle or the war, but the cost of it was so much that the whole thing is a negative in the end. And the first time where the perception of having a weapon or a certain amount of weapons or power is almost as important as actually having them. And so spies become so relevant and whatnot. And, because if you can just intimidate the person into, I have more weapons, then in the end, that final battle that you hope not to happen, you might come out on the bottom. So yeah, I'll react to I think a feature history video. Thanks guys, keep recommending. I'm over 70 subscribers. Thank you so much. Check out these videos. I always point in the wrong areas. They're like over here, right? Other videos on my channel. Again, sorry, not the intro again. I'll react to that, sure, kind of thing. I'll get it working soon. And see you next time, guys. See ya.